Look, 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 look. I'm prepared for today. I'm wearing my Hamilton socks. Wait, 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 wait. Ah. Ow. Hello, lovelies, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video. So some of you may remember that while I'm trying to make writing my profession, my degree is actually in musical theater performance. Needless to say, I love a good musical, and obviously my favorite musical is...
How does a bastard orphan...
Yep, I'm on the bandwagon of people who love this biographical musical about the USA's first Secretary of State. I don't have to list the reasons why I like this musical, because the reasons are the same for everyone else. Awesome music, great underdog story, incredible writing, etc., etc., etc. But for me, it actually touched on another love of mine. Let me take you back to 2002. I was one of those kids who grew up without cable television. I didn't have Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel. We had 5 channels. So the only kids programming I watched on a pretty regular basis was PBS Kids. Some of you might pity me, but I think it was a blessing. In 2002, PBS and DCI Entertainment came out with a new show for kids to teach them American history, and that show was called Liberty's Kids. Kids tells the story of the Revolutionary War from the point of view of 4 very different protagonists. Sarah is a loyalist, James is a patriot, Henri is a little French orphan, and Moses is a freed slave. All of them work for or learn under Benjamin Franklin at his Pennsylvania Gazette as a new nation is born. As they grow up during the war, they mature greatly and make friends that we actually know from our history books. For the most part, the show sticks to the facts and even covers little-known obscure facts about the Revolutionary War. Stuff that you don't even hear in high school American history class. I mean, my high school history class didn't cover Andrew Thaddeus Bonaventure Kosciuszko, the Polish-Lithuanian military engineer who helped us build forts like the one at Saratoga. But Liberty's Kids gave him a great spotlight. I'm also happy to say that from what I can tell, and maybe I'm not the person to speak on this, but from what I can tell, the show didn't sugarcoat the shittier parts of our American history. It fully acknowledges how dependent we were on slavery and how kind of hypocritical we were. It fully acknowledges that Washington and Jefferson both owned slaves. It puts the difficult position that most Native American tribes were in on full display. It even covers the fact that people who were of the Jewish faith weren't actually considered citizens and didn't even have the right to vote for a certain amount of time. What made this show even better were the people that they actually got to play these historical figures. Trust me, the Expendables movies are looking at the Liberty's Kids cast and quaking. Walter Cronkite as Benjamin Franklin, Don Francisco as Bernardo de Galvez, Russell Means as Chief Joseph Brant, Liam Neeson as John Paul Jones, Whoopi Goldberg as Deborah Sampson, Annette Bening as Abigail Adams, Yolanda King as Elizabeth Freeman. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone served this project by voicing Baron von Steuben and Paul Revere, respectively. Regardless of what you think of these celebrities' political opinions these days, you can't deny that having them in this cartoon all the way back in 2002 was actually super ahead of the game. This show is what got me interested in American history, and I love going back to watch it every time I listen to the Hamilton album or every time I read a new historical fiction book that takes place during the Revolutionary War. That's why Hamilton and Peggy by L.M. Eliot was so appealing to me. As some of you have probably already figured out by now, Peggy and Hamilton is about the youngest Schuyler sister, Margarita, or Peggy Schuyler, and her relationship with her 2 older sisters, Eliza and Angelica. As the 3 oldest Schuyler siblings, these sisters are practically inseparable. Until Angelica elopes with a man her parents don't approve of. Scandal. Of course, the only way that she can get away with marrying this man, John Carter, is by roping her sisters into helping her sneak out of the house and get to him so that they can be married. which puts Peggy and Eliza in a pretty difficult situation. Basically, Hamilton and Peggy covers the life of Peggy Schuyler from 1777 to about 1782. It covers everything from Angelica's elopement, Eliza's engagement and marriage, Peggy meeting Alexander Hamilton for the first time, all the way through to roughly a year after Yorktown. We see Peggy struggle as her two older sisters, who she's so close with, move on to the next phases of her life. At the same time, she's also struggling to find her own separate identity from them. We see her feelings as a number of things impact her family. Her father's decline in career and health, the several pregnancies that her mother went through and ended up losing, the engagement of Eliza and Alexander, the pregnancies of her two older sisters, etc. She has run-ins with spies who work for and against her father. French soldiers like the Marquis de Lafayette, chiefs from the Oneida, Tuscarora, and Iroquois tribes, and even General and Lady Washington. Now, I have to make a complaint about the book up front. The title would suggest that this is a story about the unique relationship between Alexander and Peggy. But to be honest with you, Alexander serves a very small role in the book. We don't actually meet him for the first 100 pages. He basically gets 2 mentions and that's it. And even after we meet him, his impact in Peggy's life is negligible. Honestly, he could not be in the book for the most part, and the story probably wouldn't change. There's really only one part of the book where he was necessary to Peggy's life, and it was a very small part. So, the title is misleading. Honestly, I think it should be changed to just "and Peggy." Cut out the Hamilton altogether. Despite this, I can't be mad at the book. It spoke to me from the dedication page, which has never happened. As the baby of a family with an older sister, I do identify with Peggy's struggles with trying to find her own identity, but also wanting to keep her family together. I understand the frustration of being treated like a child or being forced to go babysit the rest of the family, while Angelica is off being the wife of a diplomat, and Eliza is having a whirlwind romance with a guy who would eventually change the United States as we know it. I understand her heartbreak and curiosity and bravery. Her wit is admirable, as is her loyalty and devotion. It was also really fun to look for references in the book, like this one. In a letter I received from you 2 weeks ago, I noticed a comma in the middle of a phrase. It changed the meaning. Did you intend this? One stroke and you've consumed my waking days. You've written, my dearest Angelica, with the comma after dearest. You've written, my dearest Angelica. Anyway, all this to say, written in limited third person, the book obviously focuses on Peggy, but throws in some letters from other individuals to give context to the situations that come up in the chapters. I'd say that my favorite part of the story is actually the postlude. George Washington meets Katie Schuyler, Philip and Catherine Schuyler's final child, and he's actually her godfather. But while he seems to be talking to little Katie, he's actually giving some wonderful advice to Peggy about courtship and relationships, and how men should only be focused on her, and any man who doesn't do that is not worthy of her. My least favorite part isn't really a specific part. It was just a general lack of Hamilton, which I kind of already brought up. Like I said, the only thing I would change about the book is changing the title to represent the story a little better. Now, keep in mind this is a historical fiction book, so while Eliot did some amazing research for this book, obviously some liberties were taken. I would give this book 4 stars out of 5, and I would recommend it to any young and new adults who either like the play Hamilton or are interested in American history, specifically the Revolutionary War, and anyone who likes historical fiction books. Especially if those historical fiction books have some strong women. That's all I have for you today. Starforged Orion and my play How Are You are still available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Starforged is also available on Barnes & Noble's website. If you'd like to find other ways to support me, go ahead and check out my Patreon. I'm just saying you could become a beta reader if you wanted to. And don't forget to check out my other social media sites if you want more content. Toodles!